Okay, Dieter, we are live. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Great to have the opportunity talking to you in this nice virtual studio.
Yeah. Because since we are talking each other very often in these last 4 or 5 months. Now and every time we plan to meet each other in Germany, maybe during the summer. But I think that we have to postpone our.
Well, we will have to wait till after the crisis, whenever this will be.
Yeah. So first of all, how is the situation in Germany? Because I'm reading the news and there are very controversial news in these days. So I want to understand and to provide even to our listener, to my follower in this podcast, what's going on in Germany.
Well, Germany, we have a quite large number of infections, something like 154,000 or something like that. And we are ranking. Great Britain now is ahead of us, but so I think we are ranking on the fifth in the with the most viruses or infections. But the number of deaths are relatively small. Um, no idea why this is, but we did very well to that point. And for the last couple of weeks now, the daily infections are going down. And we started loosening or opening up again very slowly. But people, of course, they don't stick to the rules anymore. They're just fed up, a lot of people. And so we will have to see what's happening, if there will be a second wave or if we can avoid that.
Yeah, but I heard that now you, let me say, put down some of the rules of the lockdown. No?
Yeah. Well, we opened some. The shops are opening up, smaller shops, and we're discussing about the next step of opening up more. But this all depends very much on how the situation will develop.
Yeah. So, can you now, in one snapshot, very briefly, tell to our listener who you are and what's your, let me say, role in the organization that you represent?
Well, I'm the co-founder of the Diplomatic World Institute. We This was launched last year, pretty much almost a year ago now in June, officially, as a spin-off of the Diplomatic World magazine, opinion magazine with global impact by now. And my role within the institute is I'm director innovation and time that's for technology, internet, media, and entertainment. But so my key issue, of course, is innovation.
Okay. So, but your main targets are companies, state, government.
Well, we're an interface, really, or that's at least the role we targeting. The interface between the politics, diplomacy, economy, arts, culture. So we are have an eye on the entire universe.
So, coming on the theme of the day, how did you see change the innovation in world in the last, let me say, 20 years? Can you provide us a timeline how the innovation changed the world, communication between people and institution, people and businesses? So, can you provide us a timeline from your point of view?
Well, the last 20 years, it's quite it's not a very long time, but a lot of things have happened. I mean, internet was coming up, and slowly, the world turned more and more digital, and of course, technology was growing much faster than the acceptance by the people, and that's actually something that is taking time. People usually, they love their comfort zones, and when you're going out of your comfort zone, you become uneasy. So never change a running system. And they are used to the way they are doing things, and so it takes a lot of time to overcome the resilience till people are realizing, hey, things actually are going a lot better with this, with the new technologies. And this is actually the gap. Here in Germany, we are very skeptic about innovation, traditionally. The German angst, we first see the things that can become negative, or that can be used to do bad things, while other countries are more open. And so very often here in Germany, the regulatory approach is, okay, let's stop it and let's ban it because something bad can get out of it. And then it takes quite a while over the from the outside till we suddenly realize, oops, it also can be used the other way. And of course, what we see here in the time of crisis with Corona, suddenly everything is questioned. You can't go on like that. The system is not running anymore. You are out of your comfort zone, and suddenly you see people are opening up to innovation. And so, if there is anything good coming out of this situation and this crisis, then it sure is that we in general become more open to innovation, and because we have to, and things are speeded up.
But I see that often people, usual people, normal citizens and so on, not experts in innovation, see innovation as a threat. So I remember when I was a teenager in 1999, in the end of the previous century and millennium, that we were scared in somehow from the Big Bang. Do you remember, like the big crash of the internet and all these the big crash of 2000? So I remember that we saw the innovation, the future, as a threat, and I think that in somehow being a humankind, being full of emotions and being living in conscious, subconscious reality, we see the innovation as something negative, despite we use the innovation.
Well, you always see waves. It's like with a virus. It always comes in waves, and so is innovation. When the internet bubble in 2000 was deflating, what had happened before, we had a lot of enthusiasm about it, and people were bringing new ideas to the stock markets, the new markets, and a lot of ideas were developed that actually where the technology was not advanced enough. So the business models didn't work because they couldn't reach enough people with their services, and the services were actually too slow and didn't work properly. And so suddenly you had this turnaround, and then it went into, and then you had the old school guys saying, hey, we told you before, it's old hype, we refocus on our old business models. Yeah, and what happened, I'm always using the example of a big German newspaper. They were really, their major revenue source were job advertisements. So twice a week, they had these huge booklets within their newspaper filled with ads, job ads, and everybody who was looking for a job in Germany had to buy this newspaper. Then the first job portals were launched on the internet, and everybody told them, hey, you have to invest in that to stay on top. And they said, no, we don't do it. And then suddenly, at some point when the bubble was peaking, was getting its biggest dimension, they suddenly realized, hey, maybe we have to do something, and they bought a stake in a job portal for a huge amount of money, and that only a few weeks or months later, everything deflated, and then they said, "Oh, that's what we said all the time. We did a mistake." So they sold off this stake at the lowest, only to realize 2 years later that that the market was gone, that nobody was investing in traditional job adverts anymore, and everything went into was going to the internet. And so again, they were investing now for a very high price again to get another stake in the new platforms.
With a group of friends, Italian friends, they involved me. I mean, in their project is called Institute for just to translate from Italian, Institute for Innovation and Digital World, and of course I contribute with my expertise regarding neuropolitics, big data, and so on. And the role of this organization is to promote the innovation and to stimulate the government, to stimulate the public opinion to move forward to the innovation. So I would like to ask you, what's the role from your point of view of the government in innovating a nation, innovating a society?
Well, the governments, what they need to do is to create the framework and level playing field for new ideas to be developed and to be introduced and launched. And of course, they have to create also the framework, work within this level playing field, that you have regulations, that you can prosper, but without benefiting just for yourself.
Because we came from this paradigm, no? That the government should not intervene, no? The super ultra liberal paradigm, but without this framework, as you say, without these ideas, or without even regulation about innovation and digital world, how a company, how a business, how a startup can move in this, let me say, galaxy of uncertainty?
Well, it really depends. It's a letting loose and also becoming more strict again. It always depends on the situation. And I remember this was in the times of the internet bubble, in the early stages, when the internet was just being developed and discovered by people. When suddenly the old telecommunications law in South Korea was expiring, and they needed to put something in place, and they either they were slow or they did it on purpose, but for about a year or half a year, I don't remember exactly, the Korean telecommunications market was entirely unregulated. And this was the right moment for that, because that was one of the reasons why South Korea suddenly became that strong in the internet sphere, because new companies were trying out ideas and new models and people accepting it. And so the market was exploding. But at some point, of course...
But if I can interrupt you, the North Korea, I think, is a very interesting example, because there was a very strict collusion between the government and the business. If you remember the scandal in North Korea about the internet and innovation, the microprocessor, the wife of the prime minister was involved in several projects. That's why the government financed a lot of projects creating this bubble. So I think that, yes, also the collusion, of too much state is not good. But coming back on the bubble, do you remember when we met each other in Moscow? Was 2014 or 2015? I can't remember, the time fly. But it was the time.
16, I think it was, but
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah. By the way, it was like a long time ago in terms of innovation. We can say a year ago. I remember that some of the panel of this conference that we attended together were focusing on Bitcoin. I remember also that Alexander was talking a lot about our host, about Bitcoin and so on. But I was a bit skeptical about this. So the Bitcoin always created in me like interest, but from a point of view that okay, I see it from far, analyze always with my analyzing mindset, critical mindset, and then we see that we had several waves, so positive, up and down. How do you see now the Bitcoin? It was just a bubble or has some future? Because I heard several opinion about it, and I would like to talk with you about this.
Well, it's difficult to judge. Bitcoin is growing, and even in the crisis, it has become, at least what you can say, it has become a regular asset that is part of the asset portfolio of investors. So right now, what it is doing, it is moving along with the stock exchanges. It's going up when the stock is rising, and it's going down when the stock is falling. How long this will take, and this is only going to be a period. And there was another halving just yet now in March. And whenever that happened for Bitcoin, with a little delay of a few months, the Bitcoin value was doubling. I don't know if this model will work again in this situation. But we must not talk about Bitcoin alone, because when we see cryptocurrencies have been widely accepted to some point, and now we're talking about the euro, the digital euro, and also via the corona crisis now, the discussion to introduce a crypto dollar has gained some speed. And I think very soon we will see this kind of currencies. And Facebook is going to launch its Libra in fall, and obviously they found a solution that is acceptable to most of the governments that were complaining about it before. So there is a huge dynamic in the issue of cryptocurrencies.
But don't you see any risk for people in this world of cryptocurrency?
Oh, there's always risk, of course. That's what it is about. A lot of people already lost a huge fortune with it, because they were. But that's when what you always have in time. You have always this bubbles that are inflated and deflated again, and when you become part of the bubble at the wrong moment, of course, you lose a lot. And if you belong to the guys who are starting to pump the bubble up, then you usually are winning a lot.
My point of view, every time in the moment of crisis as today's, is when even some friend asks what to do. My advice is always to invest, and I think it's something wise, despite you try to be more conservative during a crisis. So from a point of view of innovation, do you see that this is the right moment for companies, for small and medium enterprise, or even for big corporation, to invest right now in innovation and see what will bring, or to wait?
You have to invest in innovation, because we will need new solutions to get out of this ditch we're in right now. So And that's why so many things are happening in the digital field. Here in Germany, we were very reluctant with e-schooling. And now suddenly kids can't go into school anymore. And what's happening, of course, you still need to teach them. So suddenly Zoom is winning a lot of clients from teachers that are staying in contact with their kids to get their education across. And all this has to happen. And of course, you have a lot of people are investing into new platforms. Here in Germany, this neighbor aid platforms never probably worked. People just didn't go to these platforms. They were looking for direct contact with people to help. And now suddenly, the demand is so huge to make shopping for elderly and all this kind of stuff. And suddenly these platforms are prospering, and those people that have the idea to bring them on the market now do benefit from it. And
sorry.
And there is a lot of things, and of course, paradigms are changing now. And I'm working with a finance and investing company together that now changed their entire approach to help people or governments and companies and whoever to cope with this new situation. And this is actually the kind of innovation that is required at the moment. And of course, you need to invest into that. Asynchronical is always good, because then you are ready when the market is going up again and we are getting out of this crisis. Then you are ready to harvest.
Do you see any sector that is ready to challenge itself in the new innovation revolution?
There's a lot of things actually going. There's the finance sector. I think when we talked about crypto before, and crypto is going to gain a lot of influence. And it was slow. There was much more resilience before the crisis, because the banks, of course, were fearing the competition. And if they understood what actually was piling up, fintechs are challenging the banking model. Also in more conservatives, even outside the cryptocurrency sphere, and just by how credits are handled or how investments are handled, mergers and acquisition and finance, everything is challenged right now. And of course, this crisis is gaining speed. And so we definitely will see a lot of dynamics in the finance industry and in the banking sector.
I'm more concerned about politics, society, because it's my first interest, and I hear a lot about the blockchain system is very safe and so on. But don't you see that now is time for government, for state to use such technology? For example, now we understood that we can't push so many people, on the pole, because it can be even a risk. Or, for example, in several countries, there is a risk of terrorism when people aggregate in certain place, think about the Middle East. So we have to protect in somehow people. Don't you think that, especially at European level, came the time to develop a platform based on blockchain, for example, for election, for poll?
Well, there already are countries that are working with it, even in Europe. Estonia is very advanced with their digital citizenship and with their digital administration, and they already are using blockchain. They were very advanced in a very early stage. And other of the small states, when you look what Malta is doing, or even Liechtenstein, really small, they are really opening up for the blockchain universe or environment, and come up with blockchain legislations, and they are adopting it into their systems. Of course, bigger states, it is much more difficult and much more complex to do something like that, and you have much more stakeholders and interest groups that are getting involved. When you have in Liechtenstein, it's something like 30,000 people in the state. So once you have agreed on something, it's much easier to agree on something new and a new strategy connected to it with such a small number of people. But then you have, let's say, 80 million people and all these different interest groups and lobbying groups. It's getting a lot more difficult and much more complex and much more difficult, of course.
Can you bring some example, because I think that not everybody is keen what's going on in Liechtenstein or Malta or Estonia. Some example how the state is involved in this innovation revolution.
Oh, Malta, for instance, they had a big government crisis. You may know that.
Yeah.
And so they now have a new legislation, and they changed the attitude a little bit. But one of their things, one of their goals is to become one of the leading global digital currency exchange, a platform or the market where digital currencies are traded globally, and they want to have a key role in that, and they're going after that. And also, Liechtenstein, I know some of the regulation, and they are designed to make it easier for blockchain companies to do things in Liechtenstein. And while Estonia actually is using that at a very early stage, using that as a technology in order to administrate, you can apply for your passport online and do your and everybody can do his tax online directly with the state, and gets his passport very quickly, and has a very direct response when he declares his tax. And so everything is digitalized in Estonia already, all process.
Do you think that the European Union at European Union level, let me say Commission, Parliament, and Council, will move forward?
Oh, they sure will move, of course. The question is how fast they can do it, but because of this very complex structure the European Union is. To give you an example from a different field. I'm working. I'm very literate in the TV industry, and that's was one of my key industries before innovation. And so I know quite a bit what is going on there. So when they had this new TV directive, when it was launched about 7 or 8 years ago. So when they first started designing it, and then it had to go through all the processes within the European Union till it finally became the national parliaments agreed to it. And so only 8 years later, you have the new directive based on ideas from back 8 years. But of course, with the speed everything is developing and everything is changing and progressing, of course, the regulation is not within the demand what is in need right now. And how to overcome this type of problem, I don't know, because you have this with everything when European Union is trying to regulate something, to open up to something. we are talking about the e-privacy regulation. That was actually scheduled to be in place 1.5 years ago, and then because of the elections and all other things, it got delayed. And I don't know when this e-privacy thing will actually strike us. It will strike us at some point, but I have no idea when.
So we saw that we have the web already, the web 2.0. No, I think that soon we'll have the web 3.0. What's next? How you see the next revolution? Where we can allocate our brain, let me say, our focus to the next revolution?
Well, we sure are at the rim now that the blockchain will get into the mainstream, and together with other things like artificial intelligence, we will see, I think, quite another increase in the speed of innovation. And already the new generation of computers is in the making, and it will be only a few years before they will be out. And we are now saying blockchain is secure, and Bitcoin is secure. Is especially secure because of the huge community behind it that is cross-checking everything. That's right for now. But what's happening when you have the new quantum computers? I don't know. Maybe we then will have to reconsider all that is called security again by a degree we don't know yet. On the other side, I think we will see an explosion of our knowledge, and we will get to know much more, and much more problems will be solved. But also, as always, when you're dealing with innovation, also problems will increase again, because you must not forget, and I mean that's nothing new. That's a very basic thing. Any new development you can use either for the good or for the bad, and depending on the interest group that is behind it and that wants to gain control. So we have to be very careful what's happening in the next in the future, really.
But do you think that artificial intelligence will substitute in several sectors and fields the human?
Substitute is a very
it's some kind of provocation, of course. A provocative question.
I wouldn't talk about that. A substitute. It will be something different, and we have to be careful. One thing is, and I really with John Searle. I don't know if you know. He's a philosopher, a U.S. philosopher.
Yeah,
he's in his 90s now, I think, but he's still. I read something new from him just only recently, and he is still a very sharp mind. And he, of course, says, we have, okay, now I can't think of the term Bewusstsein. These things are just doing what they are programmed to do, and they do it automatically, and they don't question why they are doing it. And that's still the big advantage we have in front of any artificial intelligence. And there is no real, at the moment, it doesn't look like artificial intelligence will develop some real consciousness. They can simulate it, but consciousness will they do not have, and that's a big advantage we still have of anything that is artificial intelligence.
I think that just to bring you one example and one episode that's happened, we see that now at airports, the passport control, especially European Union, between European Union or Schengen countries, became quite electronic, quite automatic. But a few months ago, I had to enter my country, Italy, through this system, and the system wasn't working because I don't know, was some mistake. And if I had not the possibility to go to, let me say, the human passport control, I could stuck at the airport because, come on, if everything is automated, if everything is conducted by a machine, of course there is a problem. So I think that yes, I agree with you. First of all, machine has not a soul. Okay, so can't cannot put the philosophy, for example, in what they are doing. Despite I saw that in Japan they are trying to create some robot that make you company, and react to some of the emotions. But this, I think, is even a terrible thing. But also, machines are programmed for to have mistake. Also, they are not perfect. Machines are not perfect. So, yes, my question was a bit, let me say, provocative, but to understand where we're going to, where we'll move in the past.
Well, you know this movie. It's where suddenly artificial intelligence is taking over, and you try to pull the plug, and you can't pull the plug anymore. I don't think this will not happen. I rather see the opposite danger. Everything is digital now, and we need electricity for it, and everything is this electronic circuits based on very low voltage and stuff. And so when you have some electromagnetic impulse or something like that, this can create a lot of harm. And I'm sure you know the scenarios of some flash from the universe, or some kind of attack with atomic weapons in the atmosphere that is just erasing our technical infrastructure. And then, of course, we have our bitcoins on the computer, but if we can't access it anymore, we can't access our money anymore. Yes, and now I was talking on the big scale, but also on the local scale. If only a country or a city is facing a blackout, and this blackout is going on longer, so all the batteries are running out of energy, then suddenly you have locally a huge problem when people can't access their digital money anymore. And if they then have no access to real money, just to give this as example, they cannot buy any stuff anymore, and the entire everything is coming to a stop. Not to mention that also the pumps that is pumping the fresh water into buildings will not work anymore, and all this other stuff. We are
the human factor is still fundamental. The human factor.
So we are making ourselves very much dependent to technical infrastructure, and yeah, we have to be very careful that we are not losing it, and really we're getting ourselves back into the Stone Age within no time.
Dieter, I want to thank you for this interesting chat. What was, as usual, we tried to discuss something very interesting, and I think that also who is listening us, or who is watching us, or who is going to listen to watch us will find it very, very interesting, and very, let me say, will stimulate them to know more. Because in 40 minutes or 1 hour you can't say everything, but you can launch some input for people to know more. This is also the role of podcasting or discussion in this time of crisis. This is a social role that we have, to share what we know and stimulate people to do better, or even to say something that we miss. So, Dieter, thank you very much. I want to remind everybody that this podcast live streaming is also available, will be available soon in the audio format, as usual, but you can watch it offline on YouTube, my YouTube channel, and also will be available here on Facebook. So Dieter, thank you very much. I hope to see you soon, live, face to face, and to.
At some point, we will see each other live. I'm sure of that, and
yeah.
We have lots of plans anyway. And I'm really looking forward of getting. Well, if we only get half of this stuff done, we have in our pipeline. It will be great.
Okay, so thank you, everybody. Very soon you will have the program of the next broadcasting and live streaming. So follow us. Bye.
Bye.